Hello, I'm John Patrick, the head coach of MHP Riesen Ludwigsburg, and it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the basketball team, Alexander Ryle, our president, and Dr. Ralph Hoffman, the CEO of MHP. Today I'm here to talk to you about leadership, and as the head coach or architect of our basketball team, some things that I do with our team and the way that we work in this transformational age of the pandemic. And I hope that you can take some things away that are useful and interesting. As I said, I'm the architect of the basketball team. And each year we have 12 to 15 new players come in, some young, some old, and they arrive in the middle of August. And 35 days later, their job is to perform. Their job is to perform in front of people, to perform on live TV, to compete against some established teams. And our challenge is to make these 12 to 14 unique individuals a functioning team. My challenge is also to think outside the box and to have our players think outside the box to try to play our style. Now, this challenge has been magnified in the socially distanced age of COVID, but as I said to a friend of mine recently, as a head coach, I've been socially distancing for the last 22 years. During the season, we are really in a bubble. We're focused on our team, we're focused on the details, and so in some ways it's been easier for me and easier for our team because we're not allowed. We really are in a bubble now, and we really are not allowed to go out. We're focused on our job. My project as a head coach is similar to maybe consultants' projects at companies. We take these new players, we go into a new season, and we try to teach them the elements that are going to help us win. I've compared it to a shell game. If you're walking down the street and there's a hustler on the street, and if you play his game by his rules, probably you're not going to win, or most often than not, you're not going to win. And that's our challenge, and that's what we try to teach in our culture. If we're going to play against the big boys, against Bayern Munich or against Alba Berlin, teams with maybe 10 or 20 times the budget that we have for players, we can't play their game. We have to play our game. And what that means as the architect of this team is that we have to use time and space better than other teams. If we play their shell game, we don't have any chance. If we're holding the money and we drop and they have to try to catch the money, then maybe we keep our money. And what I mean is we try to play a full court game. We try to use relatively inexperienced players, yet hungry players who are coming for their chance to play in a professional league and who are willing to think outside the box. So as we see on the graphic behind me, we have been very successful. This pandemic has actually been a huge opportunity for us because we are not able to attract the superstar players, but this has been a great opportunity to have some players who maybe were thought of as over the hill, and they've come together and they're not entitled. They're hungry to learn something new. And the last 2 seasons, we've been able to finish second and first in the regular season in the Bundesliga. So sometimes these challenges and opportunities, such as the the pandemic and not being able to get the top players have ended up being a blessing for us. One of the things that I try to do recruiting is to identify which players would fit in our system. And it's very difficult without meeting someone face to face. Very difficult to judge a player, a basketball player, a soccer player, or even someone in an office setting. How are they going to act, behave in such an emotional situation of playing basketball, competing, sweating, fighting every day? It's a game of ego. It's a game of conflict. How are these people going to interact with each other? And I'm simplifying it. I'm making the obvious statement. We want guys who love the game. We want staff members who love the game. We want a PR chief that loves the game, who can focus on the end result, but who enjoys the process. So we take young, we take old. We had the youngest player in the league this past year. We had the oldest player in the league this past year. And to simplify the topic of leadership, I would say that leadership is simply influencing other people. It can be leading with a small gesture of holding the door open for your teammates. It can be a small gesture of waiting to be the last one to eat if you have a team meal. But our success in the sports world, I think, has to do with taking pride in the process, which is much, much easier if you have guys who love to compete and love the game. So I'm stating the obvious, but for us to reach our goal of being the best team we can be, it's nothing more than focusing on this way or the process of practice every day, of not talking about being in first place or second place. We don't talk about the results, but we've been able to have great results because we're focused on the daily process. One of the things in the pandemic that has really helped us is the need to think outside the box in terms of connecting with our players through cloud solutions. And as a basketball coach, we try to make connections with players and fix their defense, fix their technique, make them better shooters. One thing that has been a gift during this time is that we started using cloud solutions for scouting, sending the scouting into a cell phone of a player. And so each day we film practice, we cut practice, and we send the clips with language, with some written criticism or some written positive note of how a player did each day. So, for example, the guys who used to go home and play Fortnite or make themselves dinner, in between this time of playing Fortnite and eating dinner or making themselves dinner, they'll look at their cell phone and they'll read our comments, and they will have their mind on the basketball team for 15 or 20 minutes a day. And this is something we've been doing the last 3 years that has, I would say, transformed the way that our players relate to us. And it's something that we will not change after the pandemic is over. So the nerve is touched a little bit less. It's much more difficult to criticize a player to his face and much easier to send a video that he can control, that he can look over more, and easier to digest with the cloud solution. So when we talk about what kind of players and what kind of staff we try to recruit, I use my experience in Japan, where I spent 13 years. It was a shock for me coming from the US and moving to a dormitory in Osaka, which I shared with 13 non-English speaking teammates. And I was told the first days there the concept of kyotsukao, the concept of empathy in Japan and how important it is. And this concept is you should try to think about the other person first. And I guess in Japan, one great example is how they use time and space without infringing on each other. If anybody has been to Japan, one of the first things that you notice is the Japanese toilet. It's an amazing experience, and it's in a small space. It has the sounds from the rainforest. You can hear birds chirping. You have a warm seat. You have showers, deodorizer. It's a new experience for people to come there, but it takes very little space. And this summarizes this, for me, is kyotsukao in Japan. You have your own space, you don't infringe upon others, and yet it's a totally new experience. And sorry to talk about the Japanese toilet, but it is, for my friends from Stanford or for people that are going to Japan, it's always a transformational experience to go there and to see that even if you go to an airport or a train station, you come there and it's unique. This is what we want to have in Ludwigsburg, and this is what we do have in Ludwigsburg, and it's with our developing the maximum impact out of a limited time and space. So, our process here, and our challenge here, is to take inexperienced players who maybe did not play well in Sweden or did play well in the second league, bring them together, and to use the 30 meters of the basketball court, to use all of it, to use our athleticism, to use our energy against teams that are probably more experienced, probably more technically gifted. And so what we need is the players to buy in. Part of our terminology is, and part of the key for us is the team building experience. For me, the team building experience is based on how our staff gets along. We practice something called the first follower, and that means me as the head coach, I can only go so far as my assistants allow me to go. If my assistants believe in what I'm doing, if the captain, if the team manager believes in what I'm doing, then we'll have the energy and the togetherness to be successful on the court. An example of this is my Japanese video coordinator. When he comes in the gym, and if there's a little bit of water on the court, he does not walk over and take a towel and wipe it up. He runs to get the towel, he runs over to wipe it up, and then he runs away and puts the towel back. And this is an example of the hustle and how he leads the players by his example. It's a small thing, but we talk about in basketball hitting the rock. The San Antonio Spurs talk about hitting the rock. You might not have any effect on the rock the first 500 times you hit it, but on the 501st time, maybe it breaks and it splits. And this is our theory with basketball. We're practicing footwork for 30 minutes a day. Most teams practice footwork for 2 or 3 minutes a day. We're practicing taking care of the ball under duress. This means we artificially construct situations in practice where our players are uncomfortable. And what happens after days and weeks and in this 35-day period where we are preparing for the season is that our players become more and more comfortable to pass the ball under duress or catch the ball under duress or to move their feet full court, so that in these 35 days they're gaining confidence in our style of playing, of thinking outside the box, of thinking of a new way, playing full court instead of half court. And this is a huge advantage when we come into the season and we're playing against other teams who, if we play their game of half court, we're at a huge disadvantage. We're smaller, we're younger or much older, we're not as strong, not as skilled. If they play our game, which is as soon as they get the ball, they're under pressure. No passes are open. They can't call a play because they're being bothered. Then we have a chance. This is a provoking, maybe even inciting way of playing. We're inciting confusion. We're inciting chaos. But this is where we can excel, and this is where we can play with the big boys. So when we have such an emotional way of playing, and full speed, full court, highly emotional, highly demanding way of playing, for us it comes down to two keys: taking care of the ball and getting more possessions. So if you play the shell game 20 times, maybe you win once or twice. If you play one time, your odds aren't good. So what we focus on in the full court is getting more steals, creating more unforced turnovers for the other team or forced turnovers, and taking care of the ball for ourselves. We go over with our clouds, with our scouting and with our video coordinator, we go through these step by step. We try to splice the games, we splice the practices every day and show the guys, even if you're 30 meters from the basket, this could be the key to keeping the ball or giving the ball away. That's on offense. That's on defense. And also on rebounding. So we've been, the last 10 years, the best offensive rebounding team in the league. This allows us to get more chances. So even if we don't have the best shooters or the most experienced players, the key for us, and it is a statistical advantage, we get maybe 10 or 15 or 20 more shots than the other team each game. Players that come to us are not used to this concept, but in the 35 days that we have them, we've seen that guys who are willing to learn, players who are not entitled, who feel like it's a chance to be here, who are willing to think outside the box, do extremely well in this environment as opposed to a traditional team. We'll talk about key measures. The most important measure for us is how we react after a miss or after a loss. So it's important to give gratitude to the players, to thank them for their effort, but it's also important that, like Tina Turner says, after a mistake, don't make the same mistake next time. And it's a measure for us after a win to be contrarian, to say, hey, guys, great effort, but we can do this better. And after a loss to say, hey, it's on us. We just played a great team, but if we do what we do, if we play our game, nobody can beat us. So let's do a little bit better. I want to thank you for your attention today. And if you ever have a chance, please come down to the MHP Arena. It's a wild, fantastic atmosphere. Thank you very much.